Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 5 of The Company You Keep. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we're in the aftermath of Charlie knows, obviously, the rest of the fam doesn't know, but obviously, the feds are closing in, and he obviously knows about Emma being CIA, and once again still hasn't told the family, but he's still trying to balance and figure that all out, because now, like, anytime he's around Emma, she's like, oh, I think I figured it out, and he's like, you figured what out? She's like, oh, it's a crossword puzzle. It's like walking on pins and needles, because it's like, right, it's only a matter of time until it comes out, so should I tell her the truth? But if I tell her the truth, she's going to know about me, and it's going to blow everything up. It was already an issue beforehand, telling her who I really was, before I found out she's a CIA agent. It's even harder now, because, like, I'm a bad guy, she's a good guy. Like, how is this all going to work out in the end, you know? Yeah, they have, like, their targets that they'll go after and stuff like that. Sure, once again, they are kind of on their Robin Hood status. They go after kind of bad people, but it's still a thing of, we're bad people, go after bad people, but we're still bad people, you know? So how do you deal with that, like, lying to Emma this entire time? And it's a lot, but, obviously, I also knew they weren't done with the Daphne situation, because of course she wasn't going to let her brother snatching up 10 mil, like, dissuade her. For one, she has to kind of basically fix things where, like, her where Connor left things broken, like one of the guy he beat up last episode, the group he's a part of. Daphne now has to kind of smooth things over with the head honcho there, and he's like, hey, I get it, you can't choose the family you need, you have. It's not even just about the Connor of it all, it's also because the feds are on your throats, and it's like, that's bad for business. So Daphne kind of has to deal with the threat of the feds and stuff. So it's like, all right, so how do I handle that whole situation? Which brings in Charlie and the fam, because it turns out she knows didn't know for sure, but she, like, the timing is just a little too interesting that, like, Connor would not only show up, but also know that I'm his, like, the only person that would do that, the only people who would benefit from, like, sicking Connor on me would be you. So she's like, right, think of this as your fault, you know? It's like that things kind of turned out this way, and it's like, right, we were supposed to be done. It's like, once again, I knew they weren't done. I knew Daphne was going, yeah, it's your problem, because, like, hey, I'm the only thing keeping Connor from killing you, so, and because he wants not only you dead, but the rest of your family for, you know, making him look weak and embarrassing him, especially all the smack talk Charlie was talking last episode, too. But Daphne needs them to go after a guy named John Baylor. He's a former MI6 person, played by Paul Blackthorne, which I'm trying to think, what was the most recent thing I saw him on? There was a short-lived show on NBC called, was it The In-Between? I think might have been the most recent thing I'd seen him in. I think so. I don't remember if that was I think that was post the end of Arrow, or because I think that show went from 2019 to 2020, because I know Arrow ended in, like, 2020 because of a shorter season, but I'm trying to remember, because I know he pops up again in the end of Arrow. I don't remember. Either way, tensions and all that aside, obviously, like, that's the thing I know him best for more recently, but I could have sworn there was something else he was in, and I just can't remember what it was. Either way, he's this guy named John Baylor who has a dirt on a lot of people, and Daphne wants to take advantage of that black book of his, on, like, all the dirt he has on people and politicians and stuff like that, because that's his thing. He works for people being their fixer, but he also keeps dirt on them as insurance policies to kind of make money if he needs to. It's also self-preservation, protecting yourself, but also you make a pretty penny off of the situation as well. So Daphne needs the book, and it's a complicated situation for our thieves, our con men, because they have to go after a guy who is very good at keeping and getting rid of every, like, trace of himself. It's actually interesting to find out, like, yeah, he was a professor at a university. Basically, that was his cover until, like, the dean exposed him. I was like, we find out the context to it later, but I'm like, how the hell did a dean at a university kind of expose you? And the fact is, MI6 had no choice but to disavow him, so he was kind of left high and dry. Hence why he kind of takes more on the criminal side, that takes on the line of work that he does now. But obviously they had to set up this whole situation of like, hey, we're calling in John because we need him to be our fixer, and we use that as a means of kind of following his trail back to essentially his black book. So it involved Birdie kind of going off script later on and getting a little, and because she did that though, Baylor kind of saw through her to some extent. He's like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me with your sob story. I do believe probably like whatever, like what she was kind of setting up there, I think probably like she was able to kind of draw it along because she was able to kind of pull from her own experience, because she's like, hey, I have a daughter, and talking about like the past and stuff. Like obviously she was referencing like, oh, this is someone I got mixed up with. I thought it was something. Like obviously that was for the con, but I think she was probably pulling a little bit from Simon, especially because that phone number and that name just keeps popping up on the phone, because she has like 3 missed calls from him in this episode. So I think she was probably pulling a little bit from that when she talked about it. But yeah, they ultimately ended up tracking down where he's hiding all of this, because it turns out the university he was working at, he kept the blackmail there. It's like, oh, like, I mean, he did spend years there, and we also find out he has a special connection to the place, because when the time has come and he ends up finding out about them and threatens their dad, it's like, hey, we need something to get him off our trail. So it's like, hey, we both walk away because, hey, I found out the reason why the dean was able to expose you is because you were having an affair with his wife. I know exactly where she lives, and she's there with her husband. And it's like, yeah, like me and my family will go after her if you don't leave us alone. So it's kind of like a stalemate of you leave us alone, we leave her alone, and we just all walk away. So, because it's like, hey, you still got your blackmail, granted now Daphne's got a copy of it, so. But I'm curious. I doubt we've seen the last of him. I could definitely see that character popping back up, being like, because for him it's like, oh, I have no weaknesses. You know nothing about me. But it's like, right, he kept those books about her, because I think there were maybe books that she herself, like, I don't know if she wrote them or like, because they were like, at least one of the books had like a signed signature from her. So I'm like, he can't let go of the past, even though he's making this whole point about let go of the past. Like, I have no weaknesses. I've kind of cut ties with everything. And it's like, obviously you're not. Which obviously comes at an interesting time, because Charlie's got everything he's got going on with Emma. First and foremost, ditching the car, like he had to kind of do that really quickly, because Emma and then we're like tracking that car down. He had this guy who, like, he got the car from, like, rather than the guy stripping the car, it's like, no, I need you to get rid of it. But it's like, right, wasn't able to get rid of it in time, so Charlie had to come switch the plates, kind of lead them further away so they're not as hot on his trail when it comes to, like, it's like, right, keeping the car as far away from us as possible, so leading them down a wrong trail. So there's that, especially, you know, it rubs Charlie the wrong way that to buy himself more time, he had to call Emma, like, because they were both there at the same time, but he did that to distract her, to give himself more time to pull off the license plate of the car and bail. But it's like, right, I kind of had to use our relationship, and she's like, right, let's have a staycation. And it's like, yeah, because Charlie wanted to kind of stay inside, kind of ignore the world before, like, kind of let us enjoy us and kind of ignore the world. But with everything going on, Emma basically gets a new job opportunity, but is basically kind of handling things on the, like, Mexican border side of things, because that's where Connor is. But that would mean, like, you know, leaving all this behind, and things are in a good place for her right now. So she wants Charlie to leave with her, because for her it's like, I love you. And Charlie doesn't say it immediately, because, you know, it's like, how can I say I love you to someone that, yes, I do love her, but, like, I'm lying to her. What I do, who I am, like, the fact of the matter is, there was always, once again, he said before, like, there was always going to be an expiration date on it, and it came a lot faster than he was expecting. He wanted just to talk to her, but she's like, no, I get it. Like, for her, it's like, she's even talking to her brother later on about, she thought this was real. Like, this is the first person she's opened herself up to. Like, she's torn down a lot of her walls, like, let down her guard a lot with Charlie in a way she hasn't with anyone else. In that same facet of, like, you know, in a romantic sense. And I mean, just, I think in general, really, she hasn't really let anyone get that close. And for her, it's like, I'm supposed to be able to read people, and I completely misread this situation. And even Charlie's coming at it from a perspective of, you know, the fact is, with all that I am and all that this is, like, it was never going to work out, and I would have to lie to her. This is a lot to kind of explain, you know, this is a lot to kind of put on her. So it's just like, maybe it's both of them feeling like, yeah, maybe it's best that things kind of end here, which is such a shame because, without even Charlie saying it, it's so obvious they're super in love with each other. They connect with each other in a way they've never really connected with anyone before. I mean, it's like, it's there. They're both feeling it. It's just their respective situations. More so, Charlie's circumstances kind of stop them on all fronts. It stops him from opening up to Emma, but it also stops him from kind of fully being himself to some extent in a way as well. Then you tie that in with like everything else that's going on. First and foremost, I couldn't remember Emma's brother's name. I think I called him Daniel. It's David. Obviously, his campaign situation. There's the woman Jennifer that was hired on. That Claire Fox was like, hey, here's this person. She's going to be part of your team. She's kind of handling more of the social media side of things, which David's dad isn't too keen on it because it's like, where does she come from? Don't tell me she came from Claire Fox. But he's like, yeah, but still, she gave us some backing and stuff. But his dad was like, the problem is with her, it's like, I'd keep an eye on her because don't misinterpret her working for us as she actually works for us. Nothing ever comes free from Claire. Like, the fact of the matter is there's always another angle, and it's like, we just don't know what it is, but I can only assume it's like political favor of like, it feels like that could almost be a blackmail situation. I don't know if it's like I don't know if honeypot would be the right word, but it almost feels like Jennifer's meant to get close to David, to draw him in, to maybe put him in a compromising position so that Claire has even more. I mean, she's already like made sure a lot of money like goes his way. That could already kind of screw him over, but maybe Jennifer's there for other reasons. I think it's probably like a thing of like, oh, let's get close to David so we can use that to our advantage. It feels like the obvious thing, but to what full extent, we'll have to wait to see how Claire plans on taking advantage of that. But especially in this episode, because David and Jennifer really hit it off, because it's like, oh, I took this position because I could have worked on any other campaign, but I chose yours because I believe in you. I see you for who you are. Because David feels like, right, the only reason, because they had this kind of Nepo conversation, because she's like, right, I've only been able to get as far as I've been able to because of my parents. And David feels that too, because he's like, every time people look at me, they don't see me. They just see my father and my mom. They see the family legacy I'm carrying, so they don't see me for me. And for the first time, he feels like Jennifer's the first person to really see him for who he is. I think her name's Jennifer. I think he called her Jen, but I think obviously like Jennifer. But either way, kind of bringing her even further on the team, and it's like, right, we kind of have to see each other for who we really are. You could tell like all of that rubs his dad the wrong way, because it's like, right, he sees his son, he feels like his son is falling deeper and deeper into Claire Fox's trap. So how this all folds in, how this all plays out, is that how this all connects is Daphne is going to use Baylor's blackmail to blackmail Emma's family, because it's like, right, she may be clean cut, but the fact of the matter is her family has some secrets. Now, the big question there is like, now is that her father's situation? Is that about her mother? Or is it about David's more recent connection to Claire Fox? I mean, it might be a combination of everything. Who knows? But she's gathering dirt on Emma's family and is going to try and use that against Emma to get her to back down. Would that be enough to make her back down? Yes, maybe. It's hard to say, because Emma, she'd probably brace her family for it, but also be the situation of, yeah, like if it meant protecting her family, she would probably like kind of back down despite all this. I don't know. Speaking of Daphne too, I should also talk about, it was interesting to see like how she got Baylor's name in the first place. It's like a friend of hers, someone that she was in a sorority with back in university. So it's like interesting. I mean, because it's like, right, she wasn't just like born into this life. Once again, her dad came seeking her out. So, she had a probably normal life until then. So she was able to take advantage of those connections in that regard. I mean, granted, we know he showed up when her mom died, but we don't know how long ago that was, like how deep into her. She might have referenced that previously in the episode with last episode of Connor. She might have referenced like how how that all came to be, like I said, when in her life he came into her life, because I was about to say, like, that could have been something forged even back then, like maybe even when she was in college, but I'd assume that was like post-college and everything, that McGuire came into her life and everything. So, but just seeing that side of her kind of playing like, oh, like, that, I mean, to other people, no one knows her for what she really is, because everyone just, I mean, she, even on paper, she's done a really good job of distancing herself from all the criminal stuff she's mixed up in, so that's why going after her it's been kind of hard for Emma, because there's nothing to directly go after her for. So, you know, she's kind of kept enough dissonance between those sides of herself, I'm sure on purpose, by keeping like a part of herself clean cut. Obviously, it allows her to kind of fall into that alias and all, into that side of her life. There's a lot of parallels you can make with what she kind of does with her life and kind of Charlie and everything. There's a lot of deep parallels between the two of them, kind of the two-faced aspects of your lives and who you have to present yourself around people, like who she was with her friend versus who she is, like, behind the mask, and who, Charlie is kind of caught between the mask and who he really is, especially when it comes to Emma. What really, really surprised me was the ending when Charlie told Emma the truth. It's like, Daphne's coming after you. It's like, wait, how do you know that name? Because I work for her and she's going to use this to come after your family. And she's like, why are you telling me this? And it's like, because I love you too. And it's like, jeez, that's a lot to kind of throw at her. Now she knows, like, right. So now they're going to have a sit down. And now the biggest thing is going to be like, well, what is Emma going to do with this information? Is she going to keep it secret to protect Charlie? Now, this could work out to their advantage, because now Charlie could be kind of an informant for her. So she could make this kind of official, maybe, but then she'd also have to recognize the fact it's like, well, we are dating. So that, puts her in a very compromising position now, knowing the truth. I mean, obviously she's going to have to probably sort out her feelings about, like, wait, this is who you are, because he's probably going to explain what's happening, how this all happened and everything. She thought she knew Charlie's secrets. Now it's like, well, he's telling you this, but it's at this point, but he's still now telling you the truth. And now his reluctance. It explains a lot, but it also opens up so many other questions. And now it's like, it's going to be interesting, because Emma's going to have to sort out her feelings, because yes, she loves Charlie, but this does change things. But he did also say, I love you too. So not how she expected that confession to go down. I wasn't expecting Charlie just to straight up tell her. I was kind of almost expecting Emma to find out on her own, and that be kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type of situation playing out. But no, this changes everything, But it also gives Emma an advantage, because now she knows, like, hey, for one, Charlie can be her inside person to take down Daphne. There's that. But also, he keeps her a step ahead. Charlie, they probably never had an opportunity to look through the blackmail, so they don't really know what she necessarily has on Emma's family, which might lead to her confronting her family about some of their dirty secrets, just because she knows someone's coming after them. We'll see how that all gets handled. I'm so curious to see where that in particular ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good